I never thought much about the old TV in my basement. It had been there since before I moved into the house. A bulky wood-paneled thing with rounded corners, the kind you had to twist dials on instead of pressing buttons. When I first bought the place, I figured I'd throw it out eventually. But like most things in a basement, it just stayed. Dust collected on it. Cobwebs hung from the power cord that dangled uselessly behind it. The screen had that permanent gray tint, like dead glass, reflecting shadows and little else. It was a relic, an artifact from someone else's life that I inherited without asking. The basement itself wasn't particularly creepy. Unfinished concrete floor, exposed pipes running overhead, a few shelves filled with paint cans and tools I barely used. It was quiet down there, still, the kind of stillness you only notice when you're alone. That was what made it unsettling at times. Not anything supernatural, just the absence of sound. When I had to go down there for laundry or storage, I always moved quickly, eager to get back upstairs where the air didn't feel so heavy. It was on a Tuesday night when it happened. I had gone downstairs to grab a box of old winter clothes since the weather had turned sharply cold. I lugged the box up to the landing, then realized I'd left the light on. Cursing myself, I went back down to flick it off. That's when I heard it. A faint buzz, low but unmistakable. My first thought was that something electrical was shorting. Maybe the old furnace kicking up interference. Then I turned my head and saw it. The television. That damned ancient TV sitting in the corner, its screen glowing faintly, lines of static rippling across it. I froze. For a good few seconds, I just stood there, staring. My rational brain tried to explain it. Maybe a surge, maybe the cord had somehow reconnected to the outlet. But the cord wasn't plugged in. I knew that. I checked it when I first moved in, because I didn't want a fire hazard. And sure enough, when I looked, the cord still dangled uselessly against the wall, covered in dust, nowhere near the outlet. I should have walked upstairs and locked the basement door right then. That would have been the smart thing. But instead I found myself creeping closer, as though the TV's soft glow was pulling me in. The static hissed louder the nearer I got. Patterns shimmered across the screen. Lines, swirls, the shifting chaos of untuned frequencies. Then, suddenly, the static snapped away and a picture formed. At first it was just a dimly lit room, the kind of room you'd expect to see in an old home video. Grainy and washed out in sickly yellow light. A basement. My basement. I staggered back, my heart hammered in my chest as I realized I was looking at a live feed of the very place I stood. Same concrete floor, same shelves, same furnace in the corner. The only difference was the angle, as if a camera hovered somewhere I couldn't see. And then, in the grainy footage, I saw movement. A figure at the far edge of the frame, half shrouded in shadow. Tall, thin, head cocked unnaturally to one side, as though its neck had been bent too far. It didn't move closer. It just stood there, watching the center of the basement, watching me. I spun around. Nothing was there. The basement was empty. Just the shelves, the pipes, the TV. No figure, no shadow person. When I turned back to the screen, The figure was gone. The static returned. Then, after a moment, the screen went black. The faint buzz died with it. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house, every creak, every gust of wind against the siding made my nerves jolt. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe it was a trick of light and imagination. Old houses have a way of warping your senses. That was the explanation I clung to. But deep down, I knew I'd seen what I'd seen. Curiosity gnawed at me. Fear, too, but mixed with something else. An awful compulsion. I had to know if it would happen again. Around midnight, I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs. The air felt thicker than usual, damp and cold against my skin. And sure enough, the TV was on again. Static filled the screen. The sound was louder this time, rising and falling in uneven waves. I stood a few feet away, gripping the flashlight like a weapon. The static shifted. A picture emerged. Again, it was my basement, filmed from some impossible angle. This time, though, the figure stood closer to the center of the frame. Its head twitched with subtle jerks, as though it were shivering in a way the rest of its body wasn't. The grainy footage flickered, and for half a second, I swear its face came into focus. Pale skin stretched tight over bone, hollow eye sockets, a mouth too wide, hanging open in a grotesque O. I turned and swept my flashlight across the room. Nothing. Empty. But when I turned back, the figure had moved closer in the footage. Now it stood where I should have been standing. And then, God help me, the screen showed me. Grainy, distorted, but unmistakably me, frozen in place, flashlight trembling in my hands. And behind me, in the footage, the figure loomed, its face hovering inches above my shoulder. I dropped the flashlight and bolted upstairs. I slammed the basement door shut, locked it, shoved a chair under the handle for good measure. My heart didn't slow down for hours. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying not to picture that hollow face. Every creak of the house set me on edge. When sleep finally came, it was restless, haunted by dreams of static and whispering voices I couldn't quite hear. I avoided the basement for days, let the laundry pile up, let the light burn nonstop down there. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't shake the thought of that TV, that awful feeling that something was waiting for me, something that didn't belong in this world, but had found a way through the screen. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to go back down, armed this time with a hammer, telling myself I'd smash the damn thing to pieces. The basement was silent when I entered. The TV was dark. I stood there for a long while, hammer in hand, waiting for it to flicker on. Nothing. Slowly, I stepped closer. The screen reflected my dim shape, warped and ghostly. I raised the hammer, ready to strike, and then the screen lit up by itself. Not static this time, not the basement, but a face, my face, staring back at me, eyes wide, mouth slack, grainy and distorted, as though filmed through water. And then the mouth moved, my voice, but warped, dragged out, like tape being stretched too far, echoed from the speakers. You shouldn't have come back. The hammer slipped from my hand. The voice laughed, my laugh, but wrong, broken. And from behind the reflection, behind my doppelganger's eyes, something shifted. A second face, pale and hollow-eyed, leaned forward from the darkness, pressing close against the inside of the screen, as though it wanted out. I ran. I didn't bother with the hammer. I didn't bother shutting off the light. I left the basement and locked the door again. But I swear, even through the floorboards, I could hear faint buzzing that night. The sound of static, whispering in a language I wasn't meant to understand. That was 2 weeks ago. I still haven't gone back down there. The laundry is molding. The light under the door glows constantly, but I can hear it. Sometimes, especially at night, the faint hum, the whispers rising and falling like a signal trying to tune in. Sometimes I catch my reflection in a mirror, and for a split second, I'm not sure if it's really me looking back. Sometimes I hear laughter that sounds almost like mine, but not quite. The old TV in my basement turned on by itself, and I know one night soon it won't be satisfied with just showing me things. One night soon, whatever is behind that screen is going to crawl out. And when it does, I don't think I'll be able to run fast enough.